The Iron Warrior stomped down the arterial corridors of the Soul Harvester. Each footfall echoed to the reverberance of unreal industry and the screaming laughter of demonic residue. The air was hot. Forge fires burned in both reality and beyond the veil. A perpetual haze of shimmering fury stained his vision. An onslaught of sound battered him, loud enough to send blood pouring down a mortal man's ears. It was the noise of the Hellforge, the thunder-strike clang of infernal hammers, and the roar of flames hot enough to immolate souls. Lieutenant Vaegor continued. His pace was neither hurried nor unhurried. Iron within, iron without. He reached the heart of the Demon Forge. The Iron Warrior gritted his teeth. Where before there had been sound, now there was sheer cacophony. Where there had been heat, now there was the rippling heart of an exploding supernova. But Vaegor endured. His transhuman physiology steeled itself and resisted. Conveyor belts delivered abject madness across contradictory space. Unbound from all natural law, the belts formed a spider's web of insane production. They sprawled in every direction. Some twisted upside down and ran along walls infested with writhing mechanical growths. Demon engines stuttered with etheric energy as ritual and science combined in unholy union. The merciless efficiency of the Fourth Legion dragging hideous order to a realm of chaos. The engines took on their myriad shapes. Their runic plates were riveted together and fused by hellfire. Black chains bound their shuddering hulls to the production line, the metal straining as caged demons vented frustration at their captivity. Formulae of binding and provocation stoked their essences to ever greater heights of homicidal apoplexy. The work was overseen by black-robed cultists. They had once been human, but the blessed work had changed them into something that was both less and more. The heat had burned away their skin. The sound had sent rivers of blood down their cheeks. The warp had mutated their flesh. Any physical weakness had been excised and replaced with the purity of iron, forming bionic monsters that no longer thought as mortals thought. They stared unceasingly through red augments and broadcasted corrupted scrap code into the tortured noosphere. At the center of the Demon Forge was the Warpsmith, or, at least, his hololithic projection. Etrogar stood in front of a firestorm that was the size of a hablock, the illusion of solidity flickering in the raging maelstrom. He was a paradox of unmoving stillness and constant motion. Semi-sentient mecha-tendrils flowed from his back, while the rest of him was held in focused rigidity. A pulsing, demonically possessed cogitator displayed nonsense code in the periphery of the hololith projection, green lettering leaking colour like blood from a dribbling wound. Vaegor saluted, slamming his fist against his chest. Impossibly, the ring of adamantium against ceramite pierced the din of demonic industry. Etrogar appraised him silently, waiting for the lieutenant to provide his report.
Warpsmith, warp disturbance has been detected at the Talentus Mandeville. 2 capital ships. Loyalist Astartes of the Black Templars chapter.
Vaegor waited. He could not gauge Etrogar's mood through the hololithic projection. Seconds passed. The industry around them continued to pace. Eventually, the warpsmith spoke.
Bring the cruisers out of low orbit and into readiness. The bombardment must wait. I will consolidate our forces and make ready to repel a direct assault. Warpsmith.
Vaegor saluted again, making ready to leave. He was surprised to hear Etragar call after him.
Lieutenant. Warpsmith.
There was a strange element of satisfaction in Etragar's voice.
The mongrel pups of the Seven come to test us. We will destroy them.
Behind his helm, Vaegor smiled.
Iron within, Warpsmith. Iron without, Lieutenant.
The hololith flickered and spluttered to nothing, as if consumed by the inferno beyond. Dramos knelt in prayer.
Let a wave of repugnance for the enemy wash over you.
The Voxcaster spluttered. The holy words of Chaplain Merrick Grimaldus were crackled, cluttered by the background noise in the recording and the scratch of sacred machine spirits. Nonetheless, Dramus could hear the fervour in the voice of the hero of Hell's Reach. They filled him with a sense of purity, a rarefied hatred that focused transhuman will towards unbending wrath.
Let hatred fill you,
the sermon continued. Through the recording, Dramos heard the distant roars of greenskin abominations.
Hate is good, for our goal is a human galaxy.
Dramos clenched his fist tighter around the hilt of his power axe. He knelt before the shrine in full armour. Each of his shoulder pads bore the visage of a grinning skeletal face, framed in a border of yet more skulls. The bone white of the morbid effigies were vivid against a background of black ceramite. Armour studs lined the adamantium adorning his upper legs. An off-white tabard flowed over his groin plate, lined with blood-red cloth. A chaplet ecclesiasticus rested on top of the fabric, like a relic presented on a cushion in a cabinet display. The armour of his torso was fashioned as a cross of murky red ribs. They were punctured at irregular intervals by power cables, each the width of a mortal's arm. The overall effect brought to mind the body of a half-flayed cadaver, as if someone had peeled back the skin across Dramos' chest and plugged it with half a dozen Medicaid pipes. Death. That is what the Castellan's armour screamed from the very essence of its machine spirit. Death and obliteration for the impure, and martyrdom for the Black Templar who wore it. The voice of Grimaldus continued undaunted.
We are called by the Emperor with a sacred duty to conquer it in his name.
Dramos nodded, head bowed.
Ave Imperator. Ave Castellan.
Dramos turned his head to the chapel doors, seeing sword brother Lothair in the threshold. He saw that his fellow Crusader was shivering. It was not cold. It was not fear. It was religious ecstasy, trembling through mighty transhuman muscle.
Enter, brother.
Lothair advanced. He was not wearing his armour, and his eyes gleamed with the fire of revelation as he bowed to a statue of the God Emperor. Candlelight flickered. His steps reverberated through the hallowed stone, dust dancing along the inscriptions of martyrs and saints.
I have been chosen.
Lothair announced. Dramos stood.
Indeed? I saw him upon a field of white-hot fire, and on his head were 2 crowns, and there was no sound but for the music of angelic choirs that sung eternal praise for him on terror. And in his grasp was a pale blue sword, the colour of ice and death. He pointed it in my direction, and thus bade me to become his instrument in the holy wars to come.
Dramos looked Lothair in the eye and held his gaze.
We are without a chaplain, Lothair. Are you certain? I am certain, brother Castellan.
Dramos paused.
The armour of faith remained with the Ruthenian crusade. It matters not,
Lothair replied.
Faith shall be my shield,
Dramos nodded.
as does the black sword.
Lothair's eyes flashed.
So be it. And you understand your purpose, brother? I do.
The Castellan nodded once more. He beheld the certainty of revelation that radiated from his sword brother, and he knew no doubt.
Praise the Emperor, brother. He has chosen you as his champion. Ave! We shall honour the rites best we are able. The strike force shall convene in the Immaculate Chapel in 1 hour. Ensure that your sword and armour is brought to me before then. As ordered, Castellan. I shall play chaplain, brother.
Lothair's eyes shone with the passion of martyrs.
I am honoured, brother Castellan. 1 hour, brother. Make haste.
Lothair hurried away. Dramos allowed himself to smile. A mortal would have quailed at the sight. His grin was fixed upon a pitted face of hideous scarring, stretched across features that were too broad to be fully human. It was the smile of an angel of death, the smile of a fanatic who existed only to slaughter in the Emperor's name. In 1 hour, they would anoint the Emperor's champion. First, though, the Castellan would see to the order of battle. He made his way to the bridge. Serfs fell to their knees in adulation as he passed. Their adoration had once embarrassed Dramos, but he had come to terms with it long ago. In venerating him, they venerated the master of the Imperium. Dramos was simply his angel, a mere extension of the divine glory of the Golden Throne. The bridge was not far from his personal shrine.
Report.
He instructed simply. Unlike the serfs that served as servants and armourers, the bridge staff did not kneel or bow. Obeying a long-standing order, they continued at their work, honouring the chapter through competence. Only Shipmaster Sorrenta turned to face him, her hand diving up in a quick salute before she replied. Lord Castellan, scans are ongoing, but we have received extensive Vox contact from Imperial forces in system. Benediction holds. Gradask is near collapse. The Black Templars are asked to break the siege of Fortress Resolve in its northern pole. Dramos grunted.
Who does the asking?
Sorrenta smiled slightly. Lord Marshal Carmine Snow has overall command at the siege of Gradask. We have already received multiple reinforcement requests from his staff, but we have also received deployment requests from Captain Mersan of the Salamanders chapter.
Mersan. I do not know him. Where are the Salamanders?
On Benediction, Lord. He says, and here I am quoting, that the Grand Honorificum will hold in fire.
But not Gradask.
Indeed not, Lord. Lord Marshal Carmine Snow provides a fuller picture, patching it through to your tactical feed now. Dramos' vision expanded with an overlay of tactical data, battle-cant hieroglyphics running along his periphery. The machine spirits in his armour automatically sorted and highlighted key information, but it was a torrent of data.
The
Castellan processed it in seconds. Between centuries of military experience, his innate intelligence, and the hyper-indoctrinated mental techniques hardwired into his brain, the task was all but effortless. "It looks bad," Sorrenta said. She had enjoyed more time with the data, digesting it as it came through in dribs and drabs. Nonetheless, her comprehension was a credit to her competence.
"Indeed,"
Dramos muttered. Gradask was not simply near collapse. It had all but collapsed already. The enemy numbers were considerable. A full company of Iron Warrior traitor Astartes were on the ground, supported by at least half a dozen traitor knights and a menagerie of demonic engines. Lord Marshal Carmine Snow had designated the retreat to Fortress Resolve as an ordered consolidation, but the loss of 8 hive cities in so many days spoke to a more desperate affair.
"Is there more data on this?"
He referred to the Iron Warrior's landing zone, an ugly blotch of red across the geographic mapping. "Patching through, Lord." The data filtered through his helm systems. Dramos seethed in outrage at what he saw. Whatever it was a clear provocation against reality itself. Grainy Picts gestured at the hellish form of a mechanical cephaloid monster that dragged itself through low orbit, and around the struts and spires of the 6th Hive City. To call it titanic would not give justice to its sheer scale. It was larger than a capital void ship, a living, demonic fortress with tentacles the length of hab blocks. A belching hellfire factorum complex, disgorging giants from its vomiting machine mouths. Dramos blink-clicked through the pits, attending next to the technical data. They were next to useless. The ramblings of asylum machine spirits and malfunctioning luminum feeds. A blasphemy against the Emperor in his guise as Omnissiah. "Fortress Resolve is at the northern pole," Sorrenta said. "That is where the main strength of the enemy is situated."
"There is no purpose in breaking the northern siege. Not if this abomination still lives."
"Lord?" The Castellan blinked away the data.
"It is a muster. If we break the siege, then the traitors will simply breed another wave of monsters and come at us again. We will spend our strength and earn nothing more than a temporary respite. No. We strike the heretics here and rid the galaxy of this blasphemy. Does it have a name?"
"The traitors call it the Scarix Crond, Lord."
Then the Scarix Crond will die.
"Very good, Lord. What are your orders?"
Bring us in for an orbital assault and prepare a cyclonic charge. The Inceptors will breach the hull, and I will lead a command squad inside. We will deliver the device to the heart of this abomination and destroy it from within.
"Understood, Lord."
In my absence, the rest of the Demi Company will be under the command of Sword Brother Paragund.
"As you say, Lord."
He will break the northern siege of Fortress Resolve once the Scarix Crond is destroyed.
"Understood. Enemy naval strength will preclude extended orbital support."
That is fine. Once all forces are deployed, engage at will.
"It will be my pleasure, Lord Castellan." Dramos nodded. He left the bridge. The Rutherian crusade of the Black Templars had already been in full swing when the astropathic distress beacons from the Taladus system were first lit. That crusade continued still. It was a golden scythe felling the rotten produce of the Cicatrix Maledictum, a glorious sword thrust into the heart of chaos itself. Thousands of profane temples had burned. Millions of heretics had been put to the sword. But there was always more. The lost and the damned spilled from the rift, seemingly without end. And so, the Ruthenian crusade was overstretched. The Black Templars could not lend its full strength to stricken Taladus. Only a single Gladius strike force could be spared. A single Gladius strike force, commanded by Castellan Dramos. And yet, the Templars were not alone. The Knights of House Morton campaigned alongside them. Dramos made his way to the Strategium. The strike cruiser's halls resembled the hallowed cloisters of ecclesiastical basilica. The skulls of priests and acolytes were built into the walls, their eyeless bones keeping blind vigil across etched stone panels. The air shimmered to the cloying sweetness of incense. Travelling choirs of cherubim sang constant hymnals, their sopranos echoing from rock and bone. Candlelight struggled against the pale illumination of combat-issue glow globes, sacred tradition tussling with the practicalities of war. The Strategium maintained this juxtaposition. A circular hololith projector waited dark in the centre of the room. Arcane machinery sprawled overhead. Machine spirits crackled, scratching green in the warm glow of candlelight. Statues of hooded figures cupped clusters of candles in their cold hands, stone fingers dripping with wax. They were backdropped by cathedral windows, each affording a view of the star-ridden void. Throughout the chamber, acolytes of the Adeptus Mechanicus shuffled and bowed. Upon seeing the Castellan, they prostrated themselves at his feet, droning Banaric prayer. Dramos ignored their supplication.
Establish comms with Sir Dirkwald Morton.
The ritual of sacred connection began. The Tech Adepts invoked the Omnissiah Emperor for his blessing, and the sprawling hololith projector whirred into aching life. Scuttling beep stirred its venerable machine spirit, and the face of Sir Dirkwald Morton began to take form in the ethereal green light. Sir Dirkwald's face was dour. It was said that Kimdaria, night world of House Morton, was a place of little light and many monsters. From the heavy facial scarring across Sir Dirkwald's bearded face, Castellan Dramos could well believe it. It was not in the manner of Imperial Knights to bow, not even to an Astartes. Instead, Sir Dirkwald showed respect with the slightest incline of his head.
Lord Castellan?
Sir Dirkwald, well met.
Sir Dirkwald nodded again.
I trust Shipmaster Sorrenta has sent over the tactical data.
Aye. It looks a grim affair, but we'll bring it to heel.
My assessment is that our path to victory begins with a direct assault on the Scarix Crond. If it remains operational, enemy reinforcement capacity will be near limitless. We cannot suffer it to live.
Sir Dirkwald's mouth twitched. His cranial implants shifted.
Bold?
I will lead my command squad in an orbital assault on the abomination. We will deliver a portable cyclonic warhead to the heart of the Demon Forge and destroy it from within.
The auger scans provide little, but I would guess that a beast like that will have ways of defending itself.
Indeed. Unless the outer defenses are engaged prior to our orbital assault, it is likely we will be shot out of the sky.
I think I follow you, Lord Castellan.
I need House Morton to commit its full strength in a frontal assault against the Scarix Crond. Your primary objectives are to engage the outer defenses to facilitate our drop assault, and to repel external reinforcement of the fortress.
Sir Dirkwald scratched his beard. The hairs were thick and bushy. His scalp, by contrast, was bald, any hair replaced by deep scarring and cranial augment plugs,
House Morton can accommodate that.
You have my thanks, sir.
And when we break through the outer defences?
Dramos paused.
That is unlikely.
We are House Morton. There is no beast we cannot slay.
Dramos nodded. He chose his next words with care, careful not to offend the knight's sense of pride.
Enemy reinforcement will be inbound. Leave the Scarix Cron to us, Sir Dirkwold. Your lances are better used against the hated enemy upon open field.
Understood.
Good. Deployment logistics will be with you shortly. May the Emperor guide your arm, Sir Dirkwold.
The Emperor protects, Lord Castellan.
The demi-company gathered in the Immaculate Chapel. With only one exception, each Primaris Astartes was battle-ready. Black and white power armour formed brutalist canvases, for the light of candles formed from the tallow fat of faithful serfs. A choir of cherubim sang overhead. Each child servitor thing clutched a tiny candle to their pudgy breast. Chapter serfs of the sacred armories knelt in a semicircle. They surrounded a golden altar, before which stood Lothair, sword brother of the Black Templars and chosen champion of the Emperor. Upon the altar was a velvet cloth, and upon that were Lothair's power claymore and the separated parts of his power armour. Each plate was cluttered with the minuscule lettering of newly etched prayers. Dramos stood on the other side of the altar. The Castellan's face was grim, evoking the chaplaincy of the chapter.
Dominator potentissime et gloriosissime, Dominus exertuum, qui omnia regis et imperas.
The chapter serfs rose. They began to dress Lothair in the sacred raiment of battle. The sword brother braced, as plates were fitted against his torso. The armour's machine spirits interfaced with the neuroreactive fibres of his black carapace with a soft growl. The rest of the demi-company honoured the moment, slamming their fists against their chests.
Dides in throno, qui recta erudicas, et ideo alacumer divinae majestati tuae, in hac necessitate nostra, ut digitassimus nos.
United in worship, the sword brothers, initiates, and neophytes of the demi-company saluted once more as the armour was fitted against Lothair's legs. The chapter serfs murmured prayers in hoarse whispers, invoking the machine spirits to the most exalted heights of divine functionality.
Excita potentiam tuam, imperator, et vini, et adiuva nos, non enim das fortibus semper praelium, sed a multis aut pausis salveri potes.
The serfs fitted the armour to Lothair's arms. With each plate added, the sword brother grew larger, wider, taller, stronger. His eyes shone with the flame of divine madness, seeming to catch the light of a dozen candles. The cherubim swarmed in fervour, their eunuch-chem song celebrating the glory of the God Emperor of humanity.
Peccata nostra non nunc clement contra nos ad vindictam, sed exaudi nos, famulus tuis misericordiam poscentes, et auxilium tuam implorantes.
3 serfs advanced, struggling beneath the weight of the ceramite chestplate that they slotted against the under-armours of Lothair's torso. Others sweated under the burden of giant shoulder pads, each seeming to add a metre to the Templars' bulk. The cherubim flocked down towards the altar. Fat little fingers reached for Lothair's helmet, half a dozen lifting the helm into the shadowed air.
Et nobis adversus inimicum essis defensio, fac ut si salvator noster et potens liberator, per maestatem suam sedentum in throno oreo.
The cherubims sank as they slowly brought the helmet onto Lothair's head. Bowing serfs adorned his magband with grenades and bolt magazines. The Emperor's champion lifted his chin. He was radiant. His armor was a beautiful tapestry of calligraphic prayers. He looked like an angel. A halo of cherubim flew about his head. Dramos felt an ecstatic smile spread across his lips.
Ave! Ave!
The Crusaders of his demi-company replied. Dramos reached for the last item upon the altar. Lothair's power claymore was of almost preposterous size. Newly etched inscriptions sang blessings into its hilt, its pommel festooned with an abundance of purity seals. It was not the Black Sword, but it was a relic, a weapon of murderous, furious angels, bathed in the blood of 100,000 heretics. A mortal would struggle to pick it up, let alone wield it in battle. Even Dramos was forced to conceal the effort as he presented the sword to the Emperor's champion.
With this begins your holy work. Take it, brother, and do his will.
Lothair placed both hands on the claymore's long hilt. He bowed his head, then he held it aloft. Its power field sparked. The choirs of cherubim scattered into the cloistered heavens. The Templars of the Strike Force saluted again, and spoke as one.
No pity, no remorse, no fear.
Shielded by a protective screen of Gladius frigates, the two strike cruisers of the Black Templars advanced upon the alpine world of Gradask. They were met by cruisers of the Iron Warriors and their escorts. Hastily withdrawn from low orbit, the enemy force had barely managed to consolidate its strength before the Imperials fell upon them. Macro batteries lit up the heavens above Gradask. Viewed from a great distance, such bombardments were tiny pinpricks of light against an ocean of black. Viewed closer, they were apocalyptic volcanic eruptions, flinging gigantic shells across hundreds of kilometers of empty space. The forces of chaos launched torpedoes. Each warhead was demonically infused and screamed noisily even in the vacuum of space. They formed an advancing wall of death for the Imperial fleet, but the Black Templar strike cruisers came on anyway. Las cannon and autocannon battery towers blazed. Torpedoes blew apart, but not all of them. The rest slammed into the protective screen of Imperial escorts. Gladius frigates broke apart. Fiery explosion rippled along adamantine hulls, and infernal faces cackled in the flames of each detonation. The strike cruisers sailed through the devastation, like feudal knights galloping through ash and smoke. Having climbed the torpedo wall, the Black Templars were among their hated foe. Brutal close-range broadsides ripped apart heretic vessels, obliterating lesser ships into broken wrecks. The battle descended into savage melee. Frigates fought personal duels in the chaos of high orbit. Debris fell towards the planet as burning meteors of block-flattening annihilation. Thousands died each second. An ugly brawl without finesse. Void shields overloaded and sparked warp luminem along deep scarred trenches. Still, the strike cruisers kept coming. Seeing that the Black Templars' orbital assault could not be prevented in the void, the Iron Warriors began a fighting retreat. They left behind the murdered hulls of friend and foe. Metal tombs drifted in the dark. Some guttered with kilometre-long fires, until all oxygen was consumed and they shuttered to black. The orbital beachhead was secured, but the victory was Pyrrhic. Neither side would enjoy naval supremacy. The war for Gradask would be decided on the ground. Bulk landers, resplendent with the heraldry of House Morton, began their descent. The heavy-duty transports blazed in the blue fires of atmosphere. Flames licked at additional layers of armour and scratched the shielding of rows of air defence turrets. As House Morton deployed, so did the Black Templars. Sword brethren made their way into drop pods, while veteran inceptors filed into a black and white Thunderhawk gunship. Chronos counting down to a precise schedule, the Templars waited. Their prayers were broadcast, brother to brother, along the Noosphere comms.
Lead us from death to victory, from falsehood to truth. Lead us from despair to hope, from faith to slaughter. Lead us to his strength and an eternity of war. Let his wrath fill our hearts. Death, war, and blood. In vengeance, serve the Emperor and the name of Dawn.
The Thunderhawk flew. Once it reached upper atmosphere, its mouth opened and Primaris Inceptors leapt forth. They plummeted at terminal velocity towards the mountains below, forming streaks of black lightning across a war-torn sky. The reinforced ceramite of their Mark 10 Gravis power armor screeched. The noise cut through the air, like a thunder god whistling his way to war. They descended into carnage. The bulk landers of House Morton were already landed, their armors pitted with flak damage and las cannon scars. The knights sallied forth. Theirs was a force that could break armies. An errant flanked by 2 gallants, 3 smaller armigers ranging out beyond the bannered formations of household infantry. The Iron Warriors answered. The possessed turrets of the Scarix Crond spat corrupted munitions at the bannered formations, flinging pieces of human body in every direction. Hissing las cannon beams tested the ion shielding of the knights, sending plumes of crackling light through the rising smoke of weapon discharge and cremated flesh. Traitor Astartes took position along the ramparts. Their bolters cut down mortal levies with mechanical efficiency, the Iron Warriors indifferent to the return of lasfire and heavy stubber bullets. Before the knights of House Morton reached the gatehouse of the Soul Harvester Fortress factory, the fell doors yawned open. From within blazed hellfire, and from those flames lumbered and loped demon engines of hideous design. Monstrous mauler fiends thundered into battle, eyes glowing with balefire and fangs drooling ectoplasm as they rampaged towards fresh meat. Lasher tendrils ripped at the air, slicing reality itself with coruscating sparks of immaterial savagery. Behind scuttled horrendous venom crawlers, fat and bulbous, with etheric energy that they discharged through howling screams of their excruciator cannons. Bannermen of House Morton were pulped in that horrific sound, and their remnants slivered with grotesque mutations that feasted on the blood of their afterbirth. The Imperial levies broke in terror, chased by Mauler fiends, and ripped apart by their lashes and fists. The knights adjusted into a hunting formation. The long-legged armigers loped ahead, stinging the flanks of the demon engines with thermal spear gouts. One Mauler fiend gave chase, and the armigers doubled back, leading the lone monster into the lances of the larger knights. 3 colossi slammed into the demon engine. Coordinated thrusts of their Reaper chainswords carved iron meat from its flanks. The demon engine scrabbled and roared, but it was already too late. Warstrider, steed of Sir Ludwig, grabbed the crippled monster's throat with its Thunderstrike gauntlet, dragging the beast into the air and exposing its belly to his fellow knights. Sir Dirkwald delivered the coup de grace. His steed, the Black Hart, aimed its thermal cannon and seared through the demon's innards at point-blank range. The Mauler fiend's lashes flailed for a few more moments, but then the abomination fell still. Sir Ludwig let it drop to the ground. The stark black, yellow and red of House Morton's colours were splashed with putrid oil and perversely human-seeming blood. Into this madness descended the plummeting inceptors of the Black Templars. Sword brethren all, they flared their jump packs at the last moment, crashing into the pulsing shell of the Scarix Crond. Their impacts reverberated through the growling fortress machine. From one of its infernal towers, an eyrie of vicious helldrakes stirred, roused from slumber after weeks of glutting on mortal souls. They stretched out jagged wings wreathed in warp lightning and keened a hideous cry. Vox arrays amplified the screams of their withered pilots into a sanity-splitting call. The Inceptors took note. As 2 Templars hastily prepared melter charges to crack the Soul Harvester's hull, the remaining 10 launched to meet the Helldrake's mid-air. Their jump packs flared with defiant light. Searing bolts streamed from their plasma exterminators. Impacts burst against demonic chassis and bubbling, warp-infused metal. The Helldrake flock scattered, screeching in pain and indignation. One Jinx left and then abruptly reversed direction, snatching an Inceptor from the air and separating the Black Templar into bloody chunks. Another flew in an upward spiral, escaping the worst of the plasma fire before contorting into a swooping plunge. A beak of solid metal opened to a Hades autocannon. Its 6 barrels spun, and a line of bullets cut another Inceptor in 2. His jump pack detonated, sending the 2 halves of him in different directions. The final Helldrake bathed a Crusader in the unreal fires of his Baleflamer, screeching as the Inceptor fired bolt after plasma bolt into its open mouth. Even as the Templar was cooked within his armour, roaring defiance, he kept firing. Something in the Helldrake's soft palate detonated, beginning a chain reaction of sorcerous explosions. Purple warp light blazed from its eyes. Each formed a pillar of flame that sucked magical power into the consuming heat. Demonic bindings unraveled. The fire in its eye went out. It fell lifeless through the sky. The surviving Inceptors landed. Their armoured boots sent hairline fractures along the pulsating hull of the Scarix Crond. Their jump packs roared and they took to the air once more. The remaining 2 Helldrakes met them head-on, screeching autocannon shells and mind-flaying fury. Another Crusader died. His torso was transformed into a valley of bloody craters of black power armor. Plasma bolts streamed from their exterminators, searing demonic plate with bubbling metal. Above them, far above them, in low orbit, 2 drop pods had already been launched, carrying 11 Primaris sword brethren of the Black Templars chapter to war. As they were flung towards the distant earth, the Crusaders bowed their heads in solemn prayer. Soon they would be roaring battle hymns, laying waste to their foes and smiting them with bloody fist. But this was a moment of relative quiet, even with the thunderous roar of the drop pod's descent. A mortal man would have been killed by the titanic pressures of gravitational force acting upon their bodies, but they were Primaris Astartes. They were gene-forged angels of the God Emperor's will. They would endure, and they would come out swinging. Dramos opened his eye, glancing across the shaking drop pod. Strapped in the harness opposite was Lothair, the Emperor's champion. His forehead rested against the pommel of his power claymore. The brimming lights of machine spirits seemed to form a faint halo about his helm, the silvery luminum of straining machines and inertial guidance systems. The Castellan felt his stomach lurch as the retro thrusters fired. He lifted his head. One hand was clenched around the handle of his master-crafted power axe. In the other was a combi flamer, ignition light sparking in fitful anticipation.
No pity!
He bellowed over the thunder.
No remorse! No fear!
The drop pod slammed onto the Soul Harvester. Its doors exploded outwards, smashing across the shivering hull. Drop harnesses released, and the Black Templars charged out into the crucible of war. From every direction, there was sound and explosive movement. A cacophony of weapons fire, demon flames, and unnatural screams cut across the ashen air. The noise boomed with such awful insistence that it might drive a mortal to battle-shock panic. Such distraction were automatically filtered through the Crusaders' linemen's ears. The other drop pod landed, and sword brothers surged forth. The timbre of battle prayers resounded through the chaos as Helldrakes battled Inceptors overhead. The Templars kept to their purpose. They followed Dramos' battle plan. Half his squad recovered the cyclonic charge from the second drop pod. They transported it at speed towards the breach point. The rest covered their transit, maintaining overwatch of the ravaged sky. Inceptors still jeweled with Helldrakes, but the Sword Brethren did not intervene, careful not to bring attention to their grim purpose. They closed on the breach point. 2 Inceptors launched away as their melter charges detonated, the coordination of the Black Templars' assault impeccable. Tortured metal screeched and tore into gnarled thicket of jagged chassis, exposing interior corridors into the Fortress Factorum. Lothair reached it first. The Emperor's champion leapt into the breach without even a look. The rest enthusiastically followed. Vagor grimaced. Alarums pulsed through his armour. Each reported a new catastrophe, though the Iron Warrior would not like to admit it. The Black Templars had wrong-footed them. The Imperials had not deployed to the siege at the northern pole. The forward siege camps, those kill zones of merciless efficiency and sadistic genius, would not as yet be tested by transhuman opponents. The majority of the Iron Warriors' strength, their company, the corrupted knightly houses of Commentus and Vracul, the bulk of the Dark Mechanicum's demon engines, was hundreds of miles from the real battle that was taking place. The Scarix Crond had means of defending itself, that was true, and Vaegor commanded a garrison that could repel entire armies of mortal militarum, but a direct Astartes assault could not be underestimated. Complicating the strategic picture further, the enemy had successfully established two fronts. At first, Vaegor had been delighted to see the Imperial Knights of House Morton attempt their frontal assault. He had been confident that the war machines would break upon the walls of the Scarix Crond. He had calmly directed his marines to defensive positions and unleashed the demon engines that spat and struggled against their runic bonds. The Knights of House Morton had some skill, but every minute that passed was another minute of attrition. An attrition that formed a brutal equation, inevitably favouring the Iron Warriors. But the Knights of House Morton were simply a feint. Utilising all three dimensions, the cursed Black Templars had deployed through orbital assault onto the Scarix Crond itself. Vaegor clenched his jaw. He might have shot them out of the sky, or else repelled them from the hull, but all his guns were pointed in the wrong direction. The Black Templars had breached the Scarix Crond, and the Knights of House Morton had pulled back, setting up a defensive encampment beyond the accuracy of the fortress's guns. Vaegor gritted his teeth. He saw the strategy as clearly as he saw the sky. House Morton would delay reinforcement to the Scarix Crond, while the Black Templars sabotaged it from within. It had been a mistake to fully reinforce the gatehouse. Vaegor balled his hands into fists. He should have foreseen the Black Templar assault. He should not have assumed that they would deploy alongside House Morton on the ground. But no matter. A call came through his helm. It was a call he could not ignore. Vaegor braced himself for insult and answered.
Warpsmith.
Explain yourself, Lieutenant.
The enemy has succeeded in its gambit, Warpsmith, but they are overextended. Their main force is within the Scarix Crond, and they have no hope of extraction.
The Warpsmith was silent. Vaegor continued.
My forces are already redeploying within the Scarix Crond. The Knights of House Morton have been driven off, and are preparing to repel reinforcement from the north. If they attack the gatehouse again, they will not fool us twice. The majority of our turrets will remain aimed at the sky to prevent aerial extraction.
They should not have fooled you once, Lieutenant.
Vaegor endured the barb.
I was wrong-footed. The enemy's strategy is suicidal.
They are the dogs of dawn. They are fanatics. You should have foreseen this.
The Templars are in our territory, with no hope of escape, Warpsmith. They are doomed.
And they will know this.
The Warpsmith's voice was tinged with fury.
This is not a hit-and-run mission. Their objective is to destroy the Scarix Crond while they are still inside.
They will not succeed, Warpsmith.
See to it that they do not.
Warpsmith.
I have sent a demi-company and House Commentus, along with aerial support. They will drive the Imperial Knights into the guns on the Scarix Crond.
Understood.
Destroy the Black Templars. I want them annihilated, Lieutenant. And quickly.
It will be done, Wolfsmith.
To Dramos' eyes, it seemed the Black Templars had invaded hell itself. The Skerrick's Cron was alive, or else the closest such a thing could truly be. Warp magics rippled through its halls. Screaming faces pressed against its walls, which in turn were grotesque fusions of metal and human skin. Mutant tendrils snatched at them, loosing torrents of blood and oil as the Crusaders cut them apart. A terrible sense of shifting movement unsteadied the Castellan's feet, as if the Soul Harvester was rearranging itself, even as the strike force carved away to its demon forge heart. So far, they had met little resistance. If the Skerrick's Cron had been a conventional starship, Dramos would have judged that they were in its maintenance capillary, narrow, cable-infested passageways that forced the Templars into single file. In lieu of anything resembling a navigational scan, their plan was simple. Move forwards, and, wherever possible, downwards. If there was any sense at all to be made of this hellish construction, then its most vulnerable machines would be nestled close to the monster's heart. Lothair led the way. His claymore crackled with blue luminem. The power field sometimes ignited the air with sparking silvery motes, unclean demonic mutations wriggling back from the light with hideous squeals.
Brother Castellan.
The Emperor's champion projected his optics to Dramos' helm, rendering further words unnecessary. They had come to a vertical shaft, resembling a giant pulsating intestine rather than a conventional access tunnel. Skin-hued walls formed fleshy ridges, squeezing together and expanding with stomach-churning irregularity. Something wet leaked from between the ridges, slick and oozing over rolls of diseased meat. The visual feed shifted as Lothair leaned forward. Helm-incorporated rangefinders calculated the distance of the drop.
Over 100 meters.
Dramos muttered over the feed.
That would lead us below the planet's surface. The foul abomination has dug its way through the world's crust. We will destroy it, brother.
Dramos switched to squad comms.
Ready rappel line. Lothair will take point. Protect the cyclonic charge at all costs.
For the Emperor! Sword Brother Bastion called, unable to contain his zealotry. His enthusiasm was infectious. Other Crusaders took up his cry.
For the Emperor!
Bastion stepped forward with a crude rappel hook. Grunting in righteous disgust, he thrust its points deep into the diseased machine flesh. Retractable ceramite-enforced fibers unspooled into the depths beneath. The Sword Brother stood back, nodding respectfully to the Emperor's champion. Wielding his claymore one-handed, Lothair wrapped his legs around the rappel line and allowed himself to fall. He controlled his descent with his remaining hand. Sanctified armor sparked with friction heat as he plummeted into the dark. The rest of the command squad followed. Their descent was speedy, almost reckless, but Dramos could feel time eating away at their chance of victory. The gruesome aperture in the ground forced them into single file. The abseil point formed an inevitable bottleneck, costing valuable seconds as each brother prepared themselves at the abyss's edge. Still, it was the quickest route available. Dramos did not know how deep the monster went into the earth, but 100 meters surely brought them close. When his turn came, the Castellan led by example, almost leaping down the hole in his haste. Friction sparks burned where his armour met the fibre, the off-product slime of its grisly movements dripping, viscous and fatty. Dramos felt the soul harvester shudder. It was as if its stomach growled in anticipation. He had the sudden, awful conviction that the machine intestine had been waiting for him, waiting for the commander, and that his squad had stumbled into a horrendous trap. The sensation was short-lived. Hypothesis became reality in a matter of seconds. The passageway constricted. Its ribbed, oil-slick walls pressed together, but it didn't close up all at once. Behaving to some grotesque biological dictate, some parts of the tunnel were more flexible than others. Iron-tipped valves unfurled, like diseased petals on an abomination flower. Dramos saw one valve close across Brother Aldwin beneath him, the Templar bellowing in pain and outrage as the razors bifurcated him at the hips. Blood spurted from his abdomen in a mortal torrent, the tunnel shivering with satiated delight as the vitae poured into grooves and folds of monstrous flesh. Aldwin slumped forward, letting go of the rappel line. His upper half was supported against the organ valve, fingers still scratching along the demonic flesh. He turned his head to Dramos. His eye ports gleamed red.
No pity. No respite. No.
The Sword Brother's final words were drowned out by an explosion. Aldwin had directed the force of his crack grenade downwards, but he was still much too close. His armour was shredded alongside strips of bloody flesh, blending the meat of Primaris Marine and the demonic organ valve. The tunnel shuddered as if in pain. The ribs and folds of its walls shivered, producing a hideous squeal. Dramos rushed towards his martyred brother. When he reached Aldwin's corpse and what remained of the demonic valve, he chopped at it with his power axe, hitting the grisly pile again and again, like a firefighter smashing their way through a hab-block door. Blood splattered and fizzed against the power field. Chunks of meat separated. Something gave way. The valve, having formed something of a floor beneath the Castellan's feet, collapsed beneath his weight. Dramos descended, one hand still around the rappel line. His was one struggle among many. Other valves unfurled, slicing into Crusaders, or else blocking their way down. Battle prayers were muffled behind demon meat, the boom of heavy bolt pistols and roar of chain weapons thundering amidst the hissing howls of the injured passage. The vertical tunnel writhed. Its flesh tore as it wound itself tighter and tighter, spiraling into a strangling knot. The blood oil excretions poured out like the tunnel was a damp rag being wrung out. The foulness sloshed over black and white shoulder pads.
Push through!
Dramos called. He could barely see, the eyes of his helm slick with demon vitae and the spurts of blood oil.
Do not stop! Push through! For the Emperor!
He hacked into a knot of muscle tissue. Gore flew everywhere. He felt the blade of his axe find resistance against a thick bundle of nerve fibres, and slammed his axe into the morass until it shredded. The knot blocking his path unravelled with all too human screams. He forced his way through. It was messy. It was gruesome. but the sword brethren carved and hacked a path downwards, undaunted. They would leave Alduin behind, his corpse crushed and mangled, but they made their way down. Dramos reached the bottom. He found Lothair pacing. First down, the Emperor's champion had been unable to help his brothers.
Damned filth,
Lothair offered.
let every instance of its kind be scoured from the galaxy. Emperor willing, it shall be,
Dramos returned. He made way for the sword brother above, focusing on the tactical array in his peripheral vision.
A cyclonic charge, Brother Castellan? Still operational. Brother Alduin is slain.
He heard the zealotry in Lothair's voice.
Blessed are the martyred. Are they, brother?
The squad consolidated at the bottom of the ravaged shaft. They found themselves in a chasmous hold, a stomach connected to the demon intestine. Bastian was singing a battle psalm. His voice was rich and melodious. He sang of the Emperor's fire and of his judgment upon all impure souls. The squad pressed onwards. 10 brothers left. Sir Dirkwold breathed through his teeth. His bushy beard was wet with sweat. The cranial wires connecting him to the throne mechanicum were like a fizzing hairdo of wild, sparking hair. The black hart, his knight-errant steed, growled. Its snuffles were the sound of luminem and grinding gears. "Why do we wait?" the ghost in the machine demanded. Its voice was young, imperious, and reckless. "In war, show no mercy." "Quiet, sir," Dirkwold replied, clamping down on the chatter with an iron will. Other, older ghosts shushed their impetuous kin, helping to restore order to the whispers of the throne mechanicum. The Black Heart stopped irritably. Though he had been loath to sound the retreat, Dirkwold had obeyed Castellan Dramos' orders. They had fallen back from the Scarix Crond, leaving the majority of their household troops as corpses. Huskarls and bannermen littered the craters of torn-up road. The shattered husks of demon engines provided hateful company, runic armours rent apart and lanced through by thermal spikes. The remaining serf soldiers were busy erecting the defensive perimeter. The armoured bulk haulers acted as linchpins in a growing barricade across the North Road. Tank traps were dragged out of the transports. Flens wire was stretched between posts. Sandbag emplacements were kitted out with autocannon carriages. Sir Ludwig rode over. War Strider's Thunderstrike gauntlet was still wet with demon ichor. Its Reaper chainsword was banded with a dozen markings, each denoting a Titan-sized kill. He spoke through the vox.
"Dirk, well fought.
Lud? And you?
This position cannot hold. Not against the styes, not with its depleted strength."
Aye, but we'll fight for every second. The Knight Gallant dipped its chainsword in respectful acknowledgement.
"I say we hunt. We can hurt them on the road, where our mobility counts for more."
Dirkwold considered. Ghosts within the Black Heart murmured support. The young lad was back, whispering tales of glorious battle. "What road, lad? They're coming by air."
"They'll have to land somewhere. Voltlanders have their turrets. The autocannons can be aimed at the sky. This position cannot hold, but it can dissuade a close drop."
Warstrider scuffed at the ground like an ill-tempered stallion.
If we force them back even just half a click, we'll have opportunities.
Another data ghost breathed helpful geographical scans into Dirkwold's mind. showing him the topography of brutalized urban ruin. Other ghosts highlighted lines of attack where the knights might strike and fade. "I see them, good sir," Dirkwolf replied. "Aye," he voxed to Ludwig. "I see the logic."
Grand. Shall I tell the Ballermen, or will you?
"I'll do it."
As you say.
"This won't be easy," Dirkwolf warned. "They won't risk losing Astartes on the approach. They'll dispatch knights and seek to tie us up as the infantry moves into position."
We could hold back the armatures. Hit the infantry formations while we engage their knights.
The suggestion brought a grim smile to Dirkwolf's grizzled face. "We'll be outnumbered enough as it is."
These wretches are not the equal of knights of House Morton. Each one of us can dispatch 2 of theirs.
On that arithmetic, we would still lose, Lud.
They won't bring all of them. Not with the polar siege.
It doesn't matter. The enemy know our numbers. We won't be able to conceal the armatures. We won't be able to conceal anything. No. This will be about speed and skill. The black heart stomped again, proud and fierce. Another beast hunt. The knights of Rakul and Commentis are animals. They won't be able to resist the law.
Grand.
From the demon's stomach they surged onwards, crusading ever closer to the monster's heart. If the Scarix Crond had been a beast of flesh and blood, its internal arrangement would have been nonsensical. An intestine gullet led them down to a stomach, and now they moved laterally, hoping to find an arterial ventricle. The maintenance corridors, overgrown with wires and putrid flesh, had led to the main thoroughfare, designed for the mass transit of mortal feet. Given over to the worship of evil, the hallways grimly parodied the churches of the Black Templar. Profane 8-pointed stars were lashed to the wall with heavy chains, the iron glowing so bright that the air shimmered with infernal heat. The remains of human sacrifices hung from the ceiling. Some were skeletal, others still dripped with cooling blood. Together, they formed inverted forests of corpses, so thick that the Crusaders had to physically push their way through them. When touched, some bodies flailed as if still alive. Rotted fingertips scratched weakly at power armor. Remnants of their flayed skin sloughed off to bloody stumps. Curved gutters separated the walls and floor, bubbling with blood and churning magma flow, the runoff of some horrendous industry that defied comprehension and a sane galaxy. Shadows cavorted and distorted around corners. Half-formed demons whispered and gossiped, fleeing from the Templars' reach.
Where are they?
Bastian asked. His enthusiasm was undimmed. If anything, it had waxed.
Where are what?
Dramos replied.
Forgive me, Castellan, if I speak out of turn. I refer to the traitor Marines, the Iron Warriors. We shall find them,
Lothair muttered. The Emperor's champion's fury had simmered into a smouldering undercurrent of rage.
They shall be purged. We will,
Dramos affirmed.
In accordance with their foul nature, Brother Bastian, the enemy is fortifying. They will trust in their slaves and thralls to wear us down.
He smiled grimly behind his helm.
You are eager to fight them? I am, Castellan. For the Emperor and Dawn. You need not worry, brother. You will soon get your chance.
They crossed the inverted forest of corpses. Beyond awaited the expanse of an empty hold. Dramos grimaced. It practically screamed trap. It was dark, so dark that even his helmet senses could not see the walls. There was no cover. But it was the only way forwards, and the Black Templars would never retreat. Lothair lifted his sword. Like every other sword brother, the Emperor's champion saw the danger.
For the Emperor! No pity! No remorse! No fear!
The Crusaders charged. They crossed the threshold of the writhing bulkhead doors. It slammed shut behind them. On the other side of the hold, its twin similarly crashed closed. In the centre of the vast space, the floor peeled back. A platform wriggled up, half connected to the internal mechanics by writhing wire tentacles. Upon the platform was a monster. A defiler stomped forward on 4 enormous crab legs. 2 remaining limbs ended in monstrous pincers that clacked thunderously in the air. It seemed top-heavy. Its bulbous torso pitched it forwards. A stomach of shifting metal was gouged open by a battle cannon, as if someone had scooped out its organs and stuffed the weapon there in place. Guns had been stitched onto the torso's shoulders, a Reaper autocannon on its right, the blocky mess of a Havoc missile launcher on its left. Above, planted on top of the torso like a grisly trophy, the Defiler's face was a grinning skull. Its eyes burned red with wrath. Its cannon boomed. The shell went long, crashing into the bulkhead door and showering the Templars in Physaline stink and jagged shrapnel. Missiles corkscrewed wildly from the Havoc launcher. They weren't aimed at anything. It was as if the monster simply wanted to announce its arrival. It certainly didn't care about ammunition. New missiles were already materializing in the launcher's barrels. The Black Templars did not hesitate. They scattered into loose formation and charged, power-armoured boots stomping across the ground. The Defiler's grin widened, splitting metal. Its belly cannon fired again. Brother Gunther was thrown into the air. He slammed down hard, but picked himself up. The closest Marine to him, Brother Mordred, was simply obliterated. The shell hit him directly and disassembled the Crusader into grisly parts. More missiles flew overhead. One exploded within a few meters of Brother Dietrich. The sword brother flew and smashed back to earth with a sickening crack of a shattered ankle. Dietrich roared in righteous fury. He rose, limping into an ungainly charge. He made it a few paces. The Reaper autocannon boomed. A string of shells punched straight through his shoulder, pitching him to the ground. As the carnage unfolded, the Scarix Crond gleefully added to the chaos. The Fortress Factorum shuddered as it reconfigured its metal flesh. The Templars struggled to remain on their feet as they sprinted through the unnatural earthquake. Jagged grooves opened into the floor, and from these ravines materialized new tools of industrial madness. Vicious circular saws, each the height of a fully grown man, sliced through the veil and thrust into the material plane. Slavering oil, they travelled along the fault line to form a nightmare factorum of ceramite rending machines. One ripped directly into Brother Lichtner's path. Tortured power armour roared. Motors snarled. Not quite tall enough to bifurcate Lichtner completely, the saw tore the Crusader apart from groin to chest. The rest of his body, reinforced by ceramite-treated bones and rigid power armor, held him together. The effect was grotesque. As the saw sped past, the Templar's legs splayed left and right, half-cut intestines drooling from the vertical mouth opened in his torso. Dramos grimaced. He dove to the right as a circular saw sliced towards him. Its blade stretched and scratched deep grooves in his shoulder pad. Bellowing a prayer of banishment, the Castellan landed a mighty kick into its flattened side. The metal bent. Suddenly wrongly proportioned for its path, the saw tore up the floor in a shower of angry sparks. Dramos heard the sound of tortured wall panels groaning open. He heard cries of blasphemy and dark prayer. Then he heard bullets. Small arms fire pinged off his armor. Ahead of him, Brother Leopus staggered under a momentum-killing punishment of heavy stub of fire. His chest plate began to crack along hairline fractures. Leopus brought up his heavy bolt pistol and returned fire. Aiming for the muzzle flares of the enemy, he darkened 3 of them forever. The Defiler screamed in murderous pleasure. Its claws snipped and snapped as its battle cannon fired once more. Brothers Bayard and Cedric were thrown skyward. Cedric landed awkwardly, power armor smoking from system failures. Bayard was less lucky. He landed across the path of a hunting circular saw. The demon machine hissed happily as it severed his right arm at the shoulder. He roared in pain. Cultists appeared from the gloom, not content to lend supporting fire from the shadows. Dramos beelined for a mob of them. He snarled in hatred and ignored the pitter-patter of bullets and las rounds on his armor. They were contemptible things, malnourished, self-mutilated psychotics, wearing tattered rags and filthy scars in the shape of blasphemous marks. The warp had changed their bodies. Hands had fused to rifles. Skin had grown luminescent pustules. Slobbering mouths had been disfigured by thrusting, useless tendrils. Those still capable of speaking screamed prayers to the dark gods and the iron warriors. Of all the blasphemies, that angered Dramos most. He hefted his combi bolter and fired. Promethium spurted from the barrel, ignited by the sparklight into sticky sheets of purifying flame. 6 cultists were swaddled by the burning blanket. They shrieked as the skin melted from their bodies and their bones crumbled to blackened ash. Drawn to the slaughter, a demon saw rampage through the crowd, caring not for whom it killed. 3 cultists were torn into bloody pieces. They still kept coming, either too insane to notice or too insane to care. Dramos crashed into them with the force of a thunderbolt. He swept his power axe in a wide arc, its master-crafted blade carving apart the torsos of 2 men. A howling woman drove a bayonet into his chest. The blade snapped from the gun as it bent against the armor. The Castellan punched her with the fist holding the axe, caving in her face with a splatter of broken teeth and cracking skull. He turned and drove his axe down in a vertical chop, cutting apart the head of another heretic. He might as well have been cutting paper. The Templar took them apart with an almost methodical fury. He sidestepped the circular saw and drove his axe along its path, slicing it in 2 along a line of red-hot steel. The top half spun off, mangling another heretic and crushing a second beneath its weight.
Death War and blood!
The battle cry came from Lothair. His helmet was haloed by the holy light of his outstretched power claim. The Emperor's champion neared the defiler. He dodged past cutting swords and simply smashed through screeching cultists.
Death! War and blood!
A Havoc missile flew past his head. It detonated behind as the champion leapt into the air. The explosion carried him further still. He was a knight of ancient days, rising through the sky to battle a dragon of archaic myth. The Crusaders roared in pious approval. The Defiler reached out with one of its pincer claws and plucked Lothair from the air. The pincer closed. The Templar's shouts turned from celebration to anger. Dramos bellowed wordless hate. He finished cutting down the mob around him and resumed his charge towards the Defiler. He lifted his axe high above his head, dodging past the careening blades of another saw.
In vengeance serve the Emperor and the name of Dawn!
The vow was taken up by the other sword brethren, the Crusaders unleashing their fury on heretics and hell machines of the Scarix Crond. They carved a ferocious path through Demonhold. Their deeds were such as might be immortalized upon cathedral ceiling. Against all the forces of hell, the Templars were resolute. No backward step, no pity, no respite, no fear. A crackling blue light shone from inside the Defiler's pincer grip. The demon's skull head turned. Its manic grin faded into a grimace, and the arm holding the claw shuddered. It fired, battle cannon booming, autocannon thundering, missile launcher spitting, but its focus was on its claw, and it made no effort to aim. It just vomited destruction. Heavy arsenal crashed into the walls and ceiling. Metal dust cascaded down, falling across the battlefield as acrid rain. The demon engine screamed. There was a concussive boom of etheric energy, and its claw detonated in an explosion of holy light. From within the ruins of its pincer came forth the Emperor's champion. His sacredly inscribed armour was partly crushed. His shoulder pads barely held together along splintering cracks. But he was alive and moving. Lothair sprinted along the demon's limb. He held his power claymore upright and close to his side. The fizzing luminem of his battered power armour sent light along the inscriptions etched into the plate. The holy words glowed gold and white. The Defiler reached for him with its other claw. Lothair ducked beneath it, driving his sword in an underarm swing through fleshy servos and mechanical tendon. The demon engine howled. Its arm flopped limply. As one monstrous limb crashed into the other, the Emperor's champion was catapulted forwards. Lothair redirected the mighty swing of his blade into a downward hack. The claymore buried deep into the Defiler's skull. The demon engine staggered. Coruscating energy flowed like lightning from the gouge in its head. Its legs buckled. Lothair wrenched free his sword. The claymore crackled blue. The Defiler fired its Havoc missile launcher at the ravaged ceiling, an impotent gesture of spiteful destruction. Roaring exhausted wrath, the Emperor's champion drove his blade across the monster's neck. Head separated from torso. The Defiler crashed down. Its legs splayed outwards. A billowing cloud of dust and smoke swept across the chamber, washing over Dramos before he reached the jewel. The cloud was so thick, so corrupted by the warp, that even his prey-sense systems could not pierce the fog. Dramos charged through the smoke. He was ready for anything. He found the Defiler's corpse. Lothair was on one knee. His sword was planted in the chasm of the monster's neck. The Emperor's champion glanced upwards. One of his shoulder plates finally broke off, clanging noisily against a ruined pincer.
Brother Castellan. Brother Lothar.
Dramos stepped closer. He extended his axe. Lothair reached for its shaft, and the Castellan dragged the Emperor's champion to his feet.
My thanks, brother. I thought you dead. The Emperor protects.
Dramos nodded. His battlefield awareness told him that the conflict had ended. The background noise was gone. The spitting roar of circular saws, the boom of bolt weaponry, the cackle of heretics, the battle prayers of his brothers, all replaced with the relative hush of stomping Templars and the occasional execution growl of a chain weapon. With the Defiler's death, the circular saw traps had slivered back into the ground, the Scarix Kron dismayed by the death of its chosen child. The Castellan took stock. The situation was grim. 2 brothers lay martyred on the ground. The blood of sword brethren pooled together in thick streams. He saw Bastian helping the injured Dietrich to his feet. Behind, Bayard slowly reloaded his heavy bolt pistol, having to make do with a missing arm.
We can still do it.
Lothair said. Dramos grunted.
Of course. The cyclonic charge is intact. Praise the Emperor. Are they? It will be the Iron Warriors next.
The eyes of Lothair's helmet seemed to flash.
Good.
8 brothers left. So far, everything was going as they had hoped. In Sir Dirkwald's experience, that meant something bad was about to happen. He directed the Black Heart through the ruined streets of a murdered hive. They ran fast along cratered roads. The enemy's shuttles had tested his bannermen's position, but, as predicted, the anti-air defences of the bulk haulers had forced them back. The traitors had retreated swiftly, unwilling to risk their precious cargo on a prolonged engagement. Sir Ludwig's gallant ran alongside the Black Heart, War Strider straining at the leash. The Armigers ran ahead. They disappeared into the gutted remains of hollowed-out buildings, relying on their augers to avoid areas of structural collapse. They navigated the rough terrain on their long, agile legs. Ghosts in the machine urged the Black Heart to join them in the hunt. Dirkwald scowled.
Quiet, good sirs, he thought. This is the hunt.
My lord, an Armiger scion boxed. The manifold whispered in anticipation. The machine spirits were eager for war. The enemy is sighted. Data sprawled across the manifold. Dirkwald absorbed it grimly. He felt the scrap code of the enemy's blasphemy. It scratched at the edge of his perception, but he ignored it, trusting in the Omnissiah. He heard the sacred cants of machine spirits resisting the desecration with holy code.
Kill an oath,
Ludwig remarked.
Abesh has taken the field.
Aye, his tyrant and 2 rampagers, Prey Seeker and the Absolute.
We owe them a reckoning.
We have numerical advantage, but they'll be difficult to bring down.
Not to mention their damned hunting hounds.
Aye.
Well, Dirk, let's get to it.
Dirkwald transmitted assent along the manifold. He directed the armigers forwards. "Take the Prey Seeker first," he instructed. Houses Mortan and Commentis had history. Millennia of atrocities had forged an unbreakable bond of hatred. The vengeful dead of both houses whispered dark tales of dishonor and betrayal, demanding blood for blood. And so, Dirkwald knew many of the enemy machines, both by name and by reputation. It was a boon, but the advantage cut both ways. The Knights of Commentis also knew House Morton. They would be difficult to lure. Difficult, but not impossible. House Commentis had earned many gifts through their deals with the damned. They had become stronger, more resilient, masters of the etheric corruptions. But such boons had not really been gifts. There had been a cost, a critical, fatal flaw. The Knights of Commentis were utterly mad. The armigers of House Morton stalked forwards. They bunched together, forming an approach on the Prey Seeker's right flank. Dirkwald and his lance hung back at a blasted crossroads. Each positioned themselves at a different junction. The final junction was for the Prey Seeker, presuming the law worked. Dirkwald extended his mind across the manifold. By the will of the Omnissiah, he saw through the eyes of his armigers. The enemy had spotted them on the augers. They were moving to engage. The traitors rotated and advanced in close formation, mindful of the lure. Around each one were swarms of impossible augur redoubts, the demonic hunting packs that swirled about their feet and loped ahead of their dark masters.
"Don't look at them too long, Dirk,"
Ludwig warned. Dirkwald scowled, but he followed the advice. "They will snare the armigers."
"Scions know what they're doing."
Humph.
"Killing Oath is mine, by the way."
"Don't be a fool, bud. We'll take it together." They waited, observing. The ghosts in the machine murmured. The armiger lance separated. One held back. The other two rushed into a flanking maneuver. The enemy steadily advanced, unwilling to be drawn into a game of rapid redeployment. Dirkwald gritted his teeth.
"They'll break formation,"
Ludwig reassured him.
"They can't help themselves."
Dirkwald grimaced. He widened his auger view and the black heart scanned for infantry movements. An ugly welt of red pinged on the scanners, clustered around the enemy shuttles. "I could take or leave it," he replied. "Their infantry holds back. If Abesh continues to be cautious, all the better. More time for the Templars to do their work." He felt Ludwig's consternation through the manifold.
"Aye. But I hope not, all the same. We owe them a few bruises."
"We'll get our chance, lad. Whether it's today or tomorrow, we'll get our chance." The ghosts muttered warnings to return Dirkwald's attention to the armigers. The demonic pack was moving rapidly, closing on the isolated armiger. House Commentis had released its hounds.
"There we go,"
Ludwig muttered. The solitary armiger made a steady retreat. It was Sir Helmut's white stag, its colours of black, red and yellow supplemented with antlers of white across its brow. It had been Helmut's steed for just over a year. The young nobleman was enthusiastic, eager. Perhaps too eager, Dirkwald thought. A few ghosts agreed. Helmet was bold to hold back. The white stag was in very real danger. The other two armigers sprinted in a curve, leaving the white stag to fend off the demon wolves. Ahead, the knights of House Commentis were picking up speed, as if dragged along by their hunting packs. The road layout made their route predictable. The flankers, Sir Roberta's Sword of Kimdaria and Sir Leo's Red Boar, timed their assault perfectly. Out of madness or supreme confidence, the enemy had not repositioned against the flanking attack. The two armigers harassed the Prey Seeker on its right. They stung its ion shields with thermal spear blasts. The Prey Seeker blurted angry horns. It was a gaudy monstrosity of gold-lined red. Spikes thrusted from its shoulders, along which hung ugly, heavy chains. Its skull was a gold war mask of savage fury, hyper-stress servos screaming as it spun to the irritants on its flank. Armed with a Thunderstrike gauntlet and a Reaper chainsword, it had no real means of reply, but it let loose with its heavy stubber. Bullets created a meager pyrokinetic display along the Red Boar's shields.
Go on,
Ludwig urged.
Take the bait, you bastard.
The armigers kept firing. Their thermal spears unleashed gouts of superheated energy into the Prey Seeker. Its ion shielding began to sputter. If House Commentis still possessed reason, they would have rotated in formation. The two rampagers would have absorbed the fire. The linchpin of their formation, the Killing Oath, would have driven the armigers away, snapping at their heels with its plasma decimator and volcano lands. But the Killing Oath ignored the flank. Rather than reposition, it advanced forwards, faster and faster, and it took the other rampager with it. Dirkwald sneered. It was madness, but it was still salvageable. If the Knights of House Commentis advanced as one, the Prey Seeker would soon benefit from the cover of shattered buildings. It would endure the attack, and the armigers would have to retreat for another strike. But instead, the Prey Seeker hesitated. It fell behind the other two traitor knights. Servos strained towards the flankers, competing with other systems that pushed it after its two fellows. Subsystems howled in brutal civil war. Madness indeed. Demonic indecision gave way to sudden frenzy. Before the Prey Seeker's shields collapsed entirely, it spun towards the flanking armigers. It stampeded towards them, war horns blasting. The armigers swiftly retreated. The lure was working. The Black Heart stopped, eager to fight. Dirkwald quieted it with a steady hand. He looked through the white stag's eyes, and his grimace deepened along well-worn, wrinkled lines. Helmet was bogged down. Extraplanar beasts formed snapping spirals around him, snarling smoke at the ash-strewn air. They seemed to be of one kind, if that was the word. Each was a vague, quadrupedal hunting hound, red of skin, with gnashing teeth and snorting snouts. But that was where the similarities ended. Some had long, curved horns. Others had snaking, barbed tongues that tasted the air. Others grew lashing tentacles from their spines, each forming a mouth that snapped and growled. The white stag cut down with its chain cleaver, separating one demon into disintegrating ectoplasm. A beam from its thermal spear melted apart a face that was not entirely real. But still the infernal dogs snapped at its heels, biting at motive servos and slowing it down. The hunters formed a quagmire of sticky ectoplasm and bestial mass, from which Helmet could not escape. The killing oath stomped into view. The rampager beside it, the Absolute, broke into an all-out charge. The killing oath locked its weapons on the white stag, but it held its fire. It seemed content to let the Absolute do the killing. The demonic beasts scattered moments before the Absolute struck. The rampager unleashed a storm of blows upon the white stag, hacking apart its ion shielding with its Reaper chainsword. The white stag gamely went to parry with its chain cleaver, but the Absolute caught the weapon with its Thunderstrike gauntlet. Demon spirits howled as it tore off the armager's arm. Luminum sparked into dancing flames along the white stag's mutilated shoulder. The Absolute's Reaper slammed down again and again. The white stag's shield collapsed. Its carapace tore open, bleeding motive force. Dirkwald disconnected from the feed. His last vision through the white stag's fading eyes was that of a demon hound leaping towards Sir Helmet's defenseless body.
An armiger or a rampager,
Ludwig said.
That's a good trade, Dirk. The lad did well.
Then let's complete the bargain and bring the Prey-Seeker down. Vagor knelt and placed his palm against the corrupted metal. The lieutenant felt the tremors of the Scaric's crond, deciphering its rumbles of anger and pain as one might read a primer.
They are coming,
he said, rising to his feet.
Make ready.
His words were redundant. His brothers were ready. The Iron Warriors had been making ready the moment the Black Templars had deployed. This was where the Sons of Dawn would die. At the most basic description, the passage was a narrow corridor, ornamented by ridged columns and leading to a set of heavy ironclad doors. Behind those doors was the Demon Forge. The portal reverberated to the clamour of the dark industries beyond. The Templars would not reach that place. Sorcery-infused flenswire coiled and twisted between the columns, half sentient and sharp enough to cut ceramite. The columns had once been metal and rock, but now were writhing abominations of unreal material. Steel-treated tentacles crackled with etheric luminem. The leering faces of screaming demons thrust from stone. The walls were on fire, as if they were within an active volcano. More flames licked down from a strangely earthen ceiling. The inferno blazed orange and red. The air thick with the smoke and fog of industry. And there, forming grim silhouettes among the smoke, were the Iron Warriors themselves. They were not many. That did not matter. They stood behind barricades of pitiless iron and ceramite tower shields. Their bolt guns were braced and aimed at the inevitable breach point at the end of the corridor. They would open fire the moment they saw the flash of white or black. This was a fire lane, a kill zone. Orn advanced. His ugly face formed a rictus grin. The mutilator was a hulking brute of shifting flesh metal, an exoskeleton of warp-born savagery fused to the pitted remains of ancient power armor.
Iron within, Lieutenant.
As he spoke, the knuckles on his chain fist cracked open. Claw protrusions pierced through the flesh metal and formed a coruscating lightning claw. The power axe that had formed his left hand calcified into a maul. His voice was like grinding gravel, a low, churning growl. Vagor nodded.
Iron without.
He hefted his power hammer, keeping his eyes on the end of the corridor. He would be glad to have this over with.
To the darkness I bring fire,
Dramos muttered. The Castellan watched as his brothers fixed melter charges to the bulkhead. There was a strange hush, an almost preternatural quiet. Bastion's joyful hymnal had been reduced to a low dirge. Dramos closed his eyes. This was the quiet before the storm.
Remember, Lothar said.
Luminem still fizzed along the etchings in his armour.
They are not human. They are not Astartes. They are not even people. They are simply traitors, and traitors exist only to be purged.
They formed up. Bastion had the honour of overseeing the transit of the cyclonic charge. Its anti-gravitic generators hummed. He waited beside it, one hand on its body. The Crusader shuddered, overtaken by a febrile, zealous energy. The rest of the squad formed the sword. Each Crusader checked their weapon. They offered promises of destruction and death. They offered prayers to the master of humanity.
Breach!
The melter charges detonated. The Templars ran once more into the belly of hell. The enemy immediately opened fire. Leopus was gunned to pieces by sustained bolt fire before he even made it through the breach. Gunther joined him in death moments later. He made it a few meters through the molten hull before his body was shredded into red gristle. Lothar was next through.
No pity! No remorse!
The Emperor's champion activated his power claymore as he clambered over broken metal. Damaged from its battle against the Defiler, the weapon sparked as the power field flared. It was a dazzling brilliance, strong enough to temporarily overload power armor optics, strong enough to throw off the enemy's aim as they instinctively glanced away. A miracle, disguised as the happy coincidence of a half-broken weapon.
No fear!
Dramos bellowed, following Lothar into the corridor. They sprinted for the closest columns. The flailing mecha tendrils recoiled as the Emperor's champion approached. His claymore reduced them to melting warp stuff in a quick flurry. Dramos joined him on the left, hacking apart another 3 growths with his power axe. The rest of his squad pushed forwards, charging through the gap with loping bounds of transhuman muscle. The Crusaders moved with inhuman swiftness, but it was not fast enough. The Iron Warriors were Astartes, and it took less than a second to recover from the Luminem flare. Bolt rounds clogged the air. Brother Cedric fell, a round catching him in the gorget and blowing apart his throat. It might have been a fatal injury, but there was no way to tell. Another 6 bolts impacted moments later, cracking his chest plate, blowing off his left hand and detonating his right knee. 5 brothers left. Dramos gritted his teeth.
Grenades!
His Templars responded instantly and flung frag charges down the passage. They bounced harmlessly off the barricades and shield wall, but killing was not their purpose. As each detonated, they threw up smoke and masonry dust, and shrapnel carved a jagged path through the flens wire ahead.
Charge!
They sprinted out. Behind, Bastion navigated the cyclonic charge through the breach point, spare hands sending heavy bolt rounds down the corridor. He was singing. Dramos roared inarticulate hate. He brought up his combi bolter, bathing the right side of the corridor in burning promethium. Heavy bolt pistols thundered as the Crusaders advanced. They received the full automatic storm of bolt guns in reply. They moved from column to column. Their chainswords tore through what was left of the flens wire and the mangled remains of pillar mutations. The orange flames forming the sides of the passage rose higher, a deep rumble reverberating from the iron-clad doors beyond. Bayard died halfway through throwing a grenade, a series of explosions rippling across his chest before the crack charge detonated and blew apart his remaining arm. They were dying. This was insanity. Religious, fanatical insanity. 4 brothers left.
For the Emperor!
They slammed into the third set of columns. 2 more to go before they reached the Iron Warrior's shield wall.
Cease fire!
The command came from the enemy, the voice harsh and tainted by the touch of metal. In an instant, the weight of full automatic fire stuttered to silence. Bastion guided the cyclonic charge into cover. The bomb listed as its anti-gravitic generators began to fail. The Templars took the opportunity to reload. Dramos fitted a new promethium canister into his combi weapon.
I am Vagor.
'Twas the same voice as before, gravelly and pitiless.
I am your enemy, and your doom.
None of the Crusaders offered their names in reply. They would not sully their purity by bandying words with traitors. They would never acknowledge that their enemy were anything but monsters.
You brought a cyclonic charge into a kill zone.
The Iron Warrior laughed bitterly.
You thin bloods are truly mad. No matter. We will put you down like dogs.
Dramos finished reloading. He might have replied that the cyclonic charge was the only reason they were still alive, that the only reason Vagor had called a ceasefire was because of the risk of an accidental detonation. He might have said that the Black Templars had played a dangerous game of brinkmanship with the Iron Warriors, and that the Black Templars had won. But he said none of that. He would never speak to a traitor. The Castellan glanced to Lothair.
He is yours, brother. Do shut him up.
The Emperor's champion nodded.
It will be my pleasure, brother.
The Crusaders charged once more. The armigers sprinted into the crossroads, pursued by a beast in the guise of a knight rampager. The prey seeker was something beyond monstrous. Its ion shield, still sparking from the damage of thermal spear sting, was a coruscating hell pattern of unnameable colours. Those hues were deep and angry, vaguely akin to a blood scarlet. The gold trimming to its red plate was blackening in invisible fires. The chains hanging between its back-mounted spikes rattled madly, but in direction that made no sense. Its Reaper chainsword was already roaring. Its Thunderstrike gauntlet shone murderously bright. Fool, an old ghost laughed. It wastes the motive force on useless spectacle. No, good sir, Dirkwald corrected grimly.
those weapons, the motive force is infinite.
Old?
Ludwig said, more for the benefit of the War Strider's ghosts than any living knight of House Morton.
Let it reach the centre.
In war, show no mercy,
Sir Elka said. She piloted Yellow Huntress, the remaining knight gallant of their lands. Yellow Huntress was an impetuous machine. Its machine spirit might have belonged better to an armiger, and yet, when it pounced, it did so with a speed and fluidity that was a delight to witness.
Lud, do we know who pilots this abomination?
Chioptis. Some dead woman.
If the prey seeker saw the danger, it made no effort to escape it. Rather than slow down, it adjusted its course for Dirkwald's knight-errant, recognizing prey that wouldn't dance out of its reach. The Black Heart scuffed the broken ground in reply. Its thermal cannon shuddered to full charge. Dirkwald allowed the ghost voices to reach a glorious crescendo. The impetuousness of the youngest ghosts filled his soul with prideful wrath. He smiled, a tight-lipped smile. Kill it. He stirred the Black Heart into a galloping charge. The knight-errant whinnied its war horns and opened fire with its thermal cannon. The two armigers spun around to support the charge. Two noble hunting hounds astride a mighty steed. On the two flanks, Yellow Huntress and War Strider cantered forwards, reapers extended like the jousting lances of ancient contest. The prey seeker slammed through the path of the thermal beam. Its ion shield exploded with an unleashed pent-up fury. It was moving fast. Dirkwald grimaced. He braced for pain. But the trap was sprung, and the Knights of House Morton struck first. Yellow Huntress and War Strider hit as one, crushing the prey seeker in a pincer before it reached the Black Heart. The Rampager staggered. Unshielded armor tore apart beneath vicious reaper teeth. The two knights gallant grabbed its shoulders with their gauntlets, wrenching against its momentum as titanic feet tore up rockreed beneath. The prey seeker screamed in frustration. The last of its shields exploded, the armigers slicing down its etheric defenses with thermal spears. It thrashed. It delivered a brutal punch to Yellow Huntress's gut, almost throwing it off. But then the Black Heart completed its charge. Pitiless momentum drove Dirkwald's Reaper into the abomination's neck, ripping up servos and forming a breach to the corrupted throne mechanicum. Dirkwald saw Chioptis within. It was horrifying. She was partially fused to her chair. Her frame was skeletal thin, where the demon's spirits had slowly devoured her physical essence. The prey seeker lashed out at him. The gallant held it back and slowed its attack. Dirkwald parried the Reaper and thrust his thermal cannon into the breach. He fired. The prey seeker's head became a fireball. The gallant allowed it to fall. The Iron Warriors advanced in a shield wall 4 abreast, an immovable object of gunmetal grey backdropped by orange flames. The Templars met them, an unstoppable force of black and white. Dramos expended the last of his Prometheum. Fire spilled over the enemy's shields, finding no weakness, no breach. The Castellan was undaunted. He dropped his pistol, feeling it maglock to his side, and hefted his axe with both hands. He led with his shoulder, jumping into the air and crashing against the Iron Warrior's shield. The traitor staggered, but only briefly. The Iron Warrior replied with a downwards hack of a snarling chain axe. Dramos parried, batting away the weapon and hooking his own around the lip of the shield. The power field broke down the ceramite at a molecular level. Before it devoured the metal entirely, Dramos wrenched the shield towards him. The Iron Warrior stumbled forwards. Dramos leaped into the movement. He delivered a headbutt strong enough to snap the neck of a mortal man. Optic systems cracked. Their sights were fouled by shattered plastiglass and screeching subsystems. But Dramos had expected the hindrance. The Iron Warrior had not. It gave Dramos a millisecond of advantage. That was all the Castellan needed to unhook his weapon and bury it into the Iron Warrior's shoulder. His axe almost severed the traitor's weapon arm from his body. The injury would have been fatal to anything but an Astartes. As it was, the Iron Warrior slammed his shield into the Castellan's side, sending Dramos stumbling. The traitor grunted as he tried and failed to lift his axe, compensating with another slam of his shield into Dramos' side. The Castellan grimaced as pain lanced down his arm. The agony was great, but he kept hold of his weapon. The Templar's next swing was a lucky decapitation strike, made half blind and entirely by instinct. The traitor dropped. The Iron Warrior standing behind him took his place. The second's reprieve gave Dramos time to remove his helmet. His vision restored, he bared his teeth at the traitor, parrying the sweep of a chainsword. His brothers fought alongside him. Lothair was already on the second rank, his opening strike a mighty vertical chop that had severed a tower shield in two and drunk deeply of his enemy's chest. Dietrich grappled with the traitor on the left, struggling to evade the Iron Warrior's shield on a broken ankle. He grunted as his enemy buried the chain axe into his side. His power armor ran wet with loosed blood. Bastian fought on the right flank. The cyclonic charge hovered behind him. It drifted back as the Iron Warrior smashed his shield into Bastian's helmet and sent the Crusader staggering. The Templar hastily threw off his helm, using his remaining hand to parry a chainsword strike. The chain teeth of their weapons locked. Sparks spat. Vicious force dragged the two combatants into a savage brawl. The Iron Warrior dropped his shield and seized Bastian by the head. He dug one thumb deep into the Crusader's unprotected eye. Lothair cut down another Iron Warrior. The blow from his claymore was so immense that it bifurcated the traitor at the hip, the top half falling into the infernal wall flames and melting under the screaming heat. The Emperor's champion strode forwards, making for the enemy commander. His way was blocked by a mutant abomination. Flesh metal flowed around ever-shifting weapons, a horrifying grin plastered on its lopsided face. Dramos ducked beneath the decapitating sweep of a chain axe. He replied with an upward swing that buried his power axe into the Iron Warrior's belly. The Castellan drove forwards. The traitor stumbled back, axe head still dug into its guts. The Iron Warrior angled a bolt pistol, impacts crashing down the Templar's back. Most hit the power pack, motive force spitting. Dramos felt his power-armoured strength begin to fail. He drew his own sidearm and pressed the bolt muzzle into the traitor's side. He held down the trigger until the weapon clicked empty, and the Iron Warrior was little more than separated meat. Dramos took stock in the fraction of a second. The way ahead was clear. blocked only by Lothair's duel with the unholy mutilator. The enemy lieutenant had retreated. At some point in the brawl, he had slipped through the ironclad doors to the Demon Forge and slammed them shut behind him. The Castellan snarled. He sorely wanted to give pursuit, but the cyclonic charge was further down the corridor, and the battle still raged. Dietrich was dead. The Crusader knelt on one knee as his enemy repeatedly smashed a chain axe into his torso. Bastian was half blind, blood pouring from a ruined eye as he wrestled his opponent. And 2 iron warriors were coming for the Castellan, their chain weapons revving. Dramos met them halfway. Neither Templar nor Iron Warrior attempted to parry the other's blows. There was only hate, a burning, implacable hate that drove them only to kill. Dramos chopped apart one Iron Warrior, even as they plunged a chainsword through his shoulder. The other traitor slammed a chain axe into the Castellan's side. Pain flared. Transhuman hormones clamped down on the agony in a sensation of dull urgency. Dramos staggered. He was losing a lot of blood. Even the biomagic of his Laraman cells was struggling to clot the flow of his gruesome wounds. His power pack was bleeding motive force. He was slowing down, but he was still moving. He was still living. He still had his faith, and faith alone could overturn the universe. The traitor had buried his chain axe deep. He was struggling to tear it free. Dramos butchered him before he could. He glanced back, panting. The Iron Warrior that had killed Dietrich had reached Bastian's grapple. With mechanical nonchalance, the traitor aimed a bolt pistol at the Crusader's head.
No!
Dramos threw his power axe. It tore from the cabling and spun through the air. As it flew, the Castellan felt a twinge of impiety. His axe was a relic, a master-crafted artifact of supreme destruction. It was beautifully adorned and perfectly weighted for its conventional purpose. It was a true work of art that had been killing the hated foe for millennia before Dramos had even been born. It was not meant to be flung in some desperate gambit. And yet, it struck true. It sank deep into the Iron Warrior's neck a moment before he pulled the trigger. The bolt pistol flared. Its aim was thrown off. Instead of detonating Bastian's head, it hit what remained of his gorget. The bolt exploded. Shrapnel carved up much of the Templar's neck. Bastian's strength gave out in an instant. The final Iron Warrior flung him to the floor and went to stomp on his skull. Before he could, the Castellan slammed into him from behind. The traitor stumbled, falling over Bastian and face first into a mesh of flenswire. The demon spirits cared not from whence the blood flowed. They betrayed the Iron Warrior with gory delight, twisting around his helmet and slicing his head to tendril ribbons. Dramos staggered. He crashed down beside Bastian, reaching out to cradle the Crusader's head in his hands. Bastian looked up at him. Blood pumped in lethal amounts from the ruination of his neck.
You got your chance, brother,
Dramos told him.
and you used it well.
Bastian managed to grin. His teeth were stained red with blood.
No pity. No respite.
No fear, brother. Go now to the Emperor's grace.
The Castellan bowed his head and let his brother drop to the floor. He forced himself to stand. He limped to the cyclonic charge. His movements felt heavier and heavier, but he began to guide the bomb to the ironclad door. Ahead, the Emperor's champion fought the Mutilator. They traded blows that would have killed any lesser Astartes twice over. Lothair's armor had already been battered and crushed. Now, it hung off him in ragged strips of tattered plate. Blood lubricated the exposed wiring, sparking and fizzing. In return, the Emperor's champion carved deep furrows into his foe, hacking off such quantities of diseased meat that even the flesh metal could not fuse fast enough. The Mutilator's rictus grin was gone. It had been replaced with blind fury. It slammed a power fist into Lothair's side. The weapon grew lightning claws that penetrated deep into the champion's flesh. It swiped across with a lashing power sword, but howled as its weapon limb was cleaved at the shoulder, left to wriggle fitfully on the ground. A new limb began to grow, forming another sword that drove deep into Lothair's chest. Pinned by lightning claw and power blade, the Emperor's champion was lifted into the air. The Mutilator frothed hatred. New weapons formed to puncture Lothair again and again. Dramos clenched his jaw. He knew he could not help Lothair. Even if he was not guiding the cyclonic charge, the Castellan was too weak, too close to death. As if hearing his thoughts, the Emperor's champion turned his head towards him. One half of his helmet was shredded away, revealing an ashen face and a bloodshot eye. Dramos met Lothair's gaze. He saw his brother's eye gleam with fanatical ecstasy, his lips moving to some unheard prayer. Lothair lifted up his power claymore and drove it deep into the Mutilator's chest. The Mutilator laughed. Flesh metal closed around the claymore. The Emperor's champion twisted. Where he was pinned by demonic blades, his flesh tore to gashing smiles. His claymore functioned like a pivot. Even as the maneuver ripped Lothair's body apart, it sent the Mutilator tumbling off balance. It stumbled into the inferno flames. Once more, the Scarix Crond gleefully betrayed its children. The Mutilator howled as it was consumed by hellfire. The Emperor's champion was silent. He bowed his head in a final prayer. His blood evaporated to red steam. His flesh fell off his bones in a wet slurry. Soon, both champion and monster were gone. One brother left. Dirkwald frowned. The enemy infantry was finally moving. They would be on the bannermen in minutes. And the beasts of House Commentus were loping back in support, chastened by their failed hunt.
Do we engage, Dirk?
Dirkwald considered, quelling the clamour of arguing ghosts with a stern thought.
We'd hurt them, lad, he said. We'd hurt them badly. But we'd die.
Aye.
I'd say we did a fine job, Dirk. Even we stopped here, we've bought the Templars a decent amount of time.
Aye. Enough time to make the enemy lose patience. Enough time to risk their infantry to our lances.
No small feat.
Dirkwald smirked. What are you doing, lad? Ludwig laughed through the vox.
Just making conversation. Shall we get to it then?
Dirkwald chuckled. Aye, he said. Let's get to it.
You look as though you've seen better days, dog.
Dramos ignored Vaegor's taunt. He pushed the cyclonic charge forwards, stepping clear of the melter charge breach in the heavy double doors. He moved slowly but steadily. Blood and motive force continued to spill from apocalyptic damage.
No words. I know you are one of Dawn's dogs, but do you not bark on command? Perhaps you could recite some of your tedious scripture.
Vaegor advanced. He didn't rush. The Templar was already half dead. At his current rate, the Castellan would not make it a quarter across the room.
Your Emperor is a corpse. Your religion is a turgid lie. Look about you, dog. Look upon a temple to true divinity.
Dramos limped on. He did not raise his head to look. He already knew what was out there, and he already hated it with every fibre of his transhuman being. What more did he need to see? He needed no confirmation of blasphemy. He needed no witness of the waking nightmare that was the Demon Forge, the spilling of blood and iron, the writhing of monstrosities still sparking wet in the etheric flow of their sorcerous afterbirth. It did not matter. It was evil. That was all. Vaegor sighed. He hefted his hammer. Its huge pitted head crackled with the Empyrean's light.
Very well, dog. Time for you to die.
The Iron Warrior paused as the Templar suddenly glared at him. Vaegor frowned. Those eyes radiated malevolent, unreasoning hate, his mouth a mess of bloody, gritted teeth. But there was something else in the Castellan's expression. Something like confusion. Or, perhaps, withering contempt. Dramos pushed the cyclonic charge forward with the last of his strength. The Iron Warrior sidestepped the bomb's path with ease. Only then did he realize what the Castellan had done. Vaegor cried out. He would have said it was a cry of alarm. Dramos would have said it was a cry of desperation and fear. It would have been better to set the charge in the Demon Forge's heart. It would have been better to carefully place the bomb where it would cause most damage, to try and intuit from the nightmare architecture where a demolition might be most destructive, to direct the precise force of the cyclonic blast so that the Scarix Crond would be purged once and for all. But Dramos had known from the moment Bastion died that such feats were beyond him. He was dying. He would gladly make do with second best. The cyclonic charge detonated. It did not have the sheer tonnage of a cyclonic torpedo, but it was still a weapon of apocalypse, of incredible mass destruction. Its thermonuclear heart ignited. Its wrath danced along atoms of oxygen and set the very air on fire. Each reaction released a catastrophic quantity of energy. Each blazed with the white-hot blindness of the God Emperor's judgment. Each resounded to a sound so loud that neither Dramos nor Vaegor heard it, their eardrums instantly shredded to useless cartilage, their linemen's ears running rivers of blood. There was simply silence, and light, and death. The explosion was felt by all creatures within miles of the blast. Though its epicenter was deep beneath the ground, it sent earthquake rumbles through the ravaged earth. The knights of House Morton struggled to keep their feet. Dirkwall steadied the black heart. "Ave," he muttered, in grim acknowledgement.
Emperor be praised,
Ludwig offered. His tone was similarly solemn. They both knew what the explosion meant. They both knew what had been won and what had been lost. "All banners, retreat," Dirkwald voxed. "Get the landers in the air. Quickly now."
What about us, Dirk?
We'll head south. Consolidate when the opportunity presents itself. In the meantime, we preserve our strength. This war isn't over.
Aye. But a fine good start, I'd say.
Dirkwald smiled. He didn't often smile. It made his beard scratch against his cheeks. Aye, a good start.
Thank you for listening to this video from the Archive Tower. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to the channel.